Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mid-Expert Conference. I now invite on stage Mr. Ken Atkinson, Vice Chairman of Vietnam Tourism Board Advisory. He will have a presentation on the key economic data, and he will then moderate a panel discussion with the leading Vietnamese developer, talking about the future of the market. Please welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The problem of speaking after the coffee break is half the people either go home or don't bother to come back. So
Ken, they're still outside having a drink, so they can't.
So I've got one of the easier starts to my presentation because I'm going to talk a bit about the economy and what's happened in the first 8 months of the year, which is fact, not fiction, and move on from there. So look at also look at a forecast for 2020, some projections which are real crystal ball for 21, and the impact of the current situation on hospitality, real estate, and the outlook for 21. So starting with 2020, I've got the comparative figures up there for 2019, which I think everybody would be familiar with. The economy has proved to be quite resilient in the first 8 months of this year, and that's also evidenced by the figures that I just saw yesterday evening for September. So we've got positive GDP growth, we've got a positive growth in exports year on year, we have a relatively high for Vietnam trade surplus, and FDI has held up extremely well under the circumstances when we think that investors and business people have been unable to travel into Vietnam. I think the figure for September, FDI is down about 4% year on year, which is an extremely good performance. Credit growth, as one might expect, has been very low, although the figures I'm reading would indicate that actually for the whole year, that's likely to be closer to 10 to 12%. If that's true, that means banks are going to be lending quite a bit more money in the last 4 months. We've got record foreign exchange reserves, currently at about 92 billion, and estimated forecast for the end of the year is 100 billion. It looks a lot better than it did, but in terms of the World Bank kind of safety ratio of reserves equaling 3 months imports, then it's still a little bit on the borderline. So, projections for 2021. GDP, there's a whole range of them, going from 6 to 6.5%, which is the government's forecast, to 8.1% from Goldman Sachs. I don't know where they got that number from. Maybe they're thinking of sending Donald Trump over here. God forbid. IMF 7%, World Bank 6.8%, and the Asia Development Bank 6.3%. And I say that Asia Development Bank are always the most conservative of those bilateral agencies. Now I move into my forecasts. I would expect exports next year to grow by at least 10% over this year's final number, partly because of the move in manufacturing that we're seeing, which will continue, and also the benefits starting to appear from particularly the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. I would expect the trade surplus to shrink because I think part of the trade surplus has been that projects have slowed down a little bit, so the imports of capital equipment for factories has been slowed, and that's contributed to this year's surplus. FDI, I would expect to continue to increase, again, because of the movement out of China. But again, European companies and American companies looking to the Vietnam market. And I think it's also worth mentioning that I think part of this is confidence in Vietnam that's been created by the way that Vietnam has handled the pandemic, the way it's, with limited resources, has actually contained the spread of the pandemic, and the great system that we have in place, of course, for contact tracing, substitute monitoring, but contact tracing also has worked extremely well. I'd expect to see continuing growth in foreign exchange reserves, and also the containment of the inflation rate below 4%. So, what do we see in terms of the hospitality real estate? Well, my friends from Savills could probably tell it better than I can, but these are my observations. Many small properties are for sale, they've closed, and also we're seeing some high-end properties start to appear on the market. The problem is that sellers still believe they can get pre-COVID prices, and that is no longer a reality. I think my view is that from what I've been reading is that we should expect prices 20 to 30% below the pre-COVID levels. So again, in Vietnam we see this all the time, that sellers' expectations do not meet buyers' expectations. Distressed sales are not apparent, and I mentioned earlier I've been here 30 years, and I've been waiting to see a distressed asset on the market in the true sense of the word. So unless the banks really start to take possession and start to liquidate some of their inventory, I don't think we're really going to see too much in the way of real distressed assets. Certainly there is a lot of interest from overseas buyers, investors into property. I think that's mainly either property that's operational, or in normal times would be operational, or very close to completion. People are shying away from greenfield or brownfield, and also from condotels because of the lack of clarity around the regulations governing condotels. So my outlook for 2021. So business visitors to Vietnam, which is an integral part of the operations for the 4- or 5-star hotels, there is certainly pent-up demand. There's a lot of transactions that are holding, waiting for business people to come in here and actually kick the tires before they sign on the dotted line. There will, as I said, continue to be increased FDI and M&A activity. But I also, in line with one or two of the other speakers, expect to see a decrease in business travel. Companies will be looking to contain costs. Companies realize that they continue to function with the use of technology. And whilst it's always fun, or at least I always found it fun, jump on a plane and fly somewhere for a meeting, half the time that is no longer necessary. So I would expect probably a 40 to 50% reduction in business travel as we come out of the COVID period. Domestic travel, of course, we know that that's quite resilient, although a lot of Vietnamese are still reluctant to jump on a plane, but as we've heard, they're happy to jump in their car or join a small group and travel to Ho Chi Minh or to Ha Long Bay from Hanoi. So whilst I expect we're not going to get to that 85 million domestic tourist level, I think 50 to 60 million, unless there is another outbreak, is quite realistic. In tourism, a lot of pent-up demand. There's surveys been done in China, and a lot of potential demand there, as there will be from Korea and Taiwan. But then it's a question of relaxing the quarantine restrictions for those countries. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that we will see some green lanes or travel bubbles, whatever you want to call them, for countries that have demonstrated the ability or not having had any community spread for 30 days and with possibly limited quarantine conditions when they arrive here. I think in a way, long haul ultimately will be less affected, but of course, who wants to take anybody from Europe or the United States at the moment because of just their high levels of community spread and the high number of cases of COVID. I've mentioned the fact that I think Vietnam's reputation for managing COVID will put it in good stead. I don't think Vietnam gets enough international recognition on the media channels for what it's actually achieved, and I think the Vietnamese government needs to start working on a PR campaign of their own to highlight that. And interestingly, on Agoda, something I read a couple of days ago, Vietnam is the 4th most searched after destination currently of people looking and planning trips. So my pessimistic forecast for foreign visitors is 6 to 8 million compared to 18 million last year. And I think that would be assuming that there's some return to normality in terms of open borders and lowering of quarantine restrictions. The mid case, I would say, would 8 to 10. An optimistic would be 10 to 12, but I really feel that my forecast will be in that 6 to 8 million range. Just a word, I also represent Grant Thornton in Vietnam, a company that I founded back in 1993. It's a global auditing, accounting and advisory firm, and we're in 140 different countries around the world. Vietnam, we were the second firm to be licensed back in 1993, and the firm operates with 13 partners and achieved nearly 7 million in revenue in 2019. Thank you. So if I could invite my panel to come up, please.
Panel, they're waiting for you.
And if we could have the panel photographs up so everybody can sit under there. That's it. Okay. So if you'd like to come up and sit in front of your photograph.
Finally, we have a female on the panel.
I was going to say that. We asked Mr. Kien not to show up so we could get some gender equality into the proceedings, right?
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll ask the panel if they would just take 1 minute each to introduce themselves. They can do it better than I can. So thank you. Ken.
Shall I start first?
Yes, please.
Hi everyone. My name is Phian. I'm in charge of the finance department in Novaland Group. In the past 3 years, we have been quite active in hospitality sector, and our major markets is in Phan Thiet and Ho Chi Minh, which is 1 to 2 hours drivable by car from Ho Chi Minh City.
Hi, my name is Đức Nguyen. I'm an investment director at Logis Hospitality Holding. Logis was created in 2016 by Warburg Pincus, a private equity fund from New York, and Vina Capital. So we own a host of assets across Vietnam and Cambodia, such as the Sofitel Legend Metropole, the International Center, 2 Raffles hotels in Cambodia, Fusion Cam Ranh, and then the Grand Ho Chi Minh.
I have the mic here. Good afternoon. My name is Roland Svensson. I'm the CEO of TNT Hospitality, which is a division of the TNT Group, which is one of the largest multi-industry companies in Vietnam. We're now going into the hospitality business, and we have 10 hotels in the pipeline from north to south, and so a very exciting time for us at the moment. Next.
Hannah? Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sun Thu from TMG. In TMG, there are 4 pillars of business, which is IVU, it's the online platform, and aviation, we have high-oil aviation, and travel business, we have brands Buffalo Tour before, and now we have exit from that business. We moved to new brands from Vivu Journey. And the last pillars is the hospitality. I'm from the hospitality pillars. We have 2 brands, Victoria Hotels with 7 hotels, 6 hotels in Vietnam and 1 in Laos. And another brand name is M brand, is Young Phun Kip Jen 3-star hotels across the country. And I'm very happy to join you on today.
Thanks.
It's okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hannes. I work for Eurowindow Holding. We basically have real estate, construction material, and also financial investments in local banks, where I'm responsible for the asset management of all the real estate that we have. In the second role, I'm also a general director of Eurowindow Nha Trang, which is holding 2 of our resorts, Mövenpick and the Radisson Blu. And so today we're here to talk about hospitality.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Right. So I'm going to start with a few questions, and hopefully we'll also have time for questions from the audience. I'm going to ask each of the panelists in turn, just to, from a developer's perspective, what do you see the key challenges and opportunities going forward? So let's start that end this time. Hannes.
Yeah, opportunities going forward. We heard that a lot of times it's going to be difficult, right? And I'm afraid I haven't got any better news. But I think what people learned is, and we spoke about it very quickly before, how to streamline the operations. So they learned how to operate in a more challenging environment, which is good. And the Vietnamese market itself is actually very promising. We saw it with the numbers. We've got a very strong local demand, so it will really help. The question is probably not so much on the occupancy levels, it's more on the room rates, because the room rates are so-so, and it will be difficult to actually bring them up, right? And when we talk about what the future will bring and what the opportunities are, it's really not a question of how many people you're going to pump into hotels, it's more a question of what rates you're going to achieve to get your revenues. But definitely local traveling is a big opportunity. We will see Christmas coming. The expats have to go somewhere. New Year, TEs will definitely help. And then hopefully we will see some easing on the travel restrictions second half of 2021. So there are opportunities there. It's just really hard work to get there.
Thank you. Bob?
So for DMG, if we say for the year 2020, 2021, sorry, we foresee that this will be the very challenging for us, and same goes for everybody, with a lot of uncertainty. But in terms of the opportunity for moving forward, we do believe that travel tourism will be back and grow globally as well as in Vietnam, thanks to the very good news on the mechanism to reopen borders. And also we do hope that there will be good news on the vaccine. So the second half for the 2021 can be very difficult to predict. However, we do see it's quite promising.
So I think people should be listening to that lead, bearing in mind that your CEO is a medical doctor, and he's obviously got some insights into that. But I think also you're starting development of at least a couple of projects now, right? And new projects in Hoi An.
Exactly. At the moment, we have postponed a few projects due to the current pandemic. But we will resume operating later on.
Okay, thank you. Roland?
At the moment, T&T Hospitality, we're purely a developer, so we don't operate any hotel at the moment. So for us, and as I mentioned before, we have about 10 projects in the pipeline, quite advanced project. The biggest challenge is to now review all these timelines to see how do we go forward. When do we see ourselves opening the hotels? How do we either slow down or speed up the project process? So that is something. And then also, as I said, we have 10 hotels. Do we fast track one hotel? Do we slow it down? So it's kind of a situation we're in now to review how we're going to do that. It's also to see, we're going into a lot of second and third tier cities. That's our strategy as we move forward. And so we also are now reviewing designs, master plans, layout plans, we're learning obviously from COVID, cost management and so forth. We're now putting much more attention on back of the house planning, see how we can make it more efficient, etc. So we're going quite deep into that. And we have a strategic partnership with one international global hotel company who's going to manage all our hotels. I can't reveal at the moment who they are, but we're also working with them now to see, especially with the hard brands, are there any flexibility in the hard brands? Can we, as we know, they're very rigid standards, and some of it has a cost effect. So we see, is there any opportunities there to kind of control the cost a little bit better? In terms of opportunities, as a developer, it also gives us a chance to kind of slow down the process a little bit. We can more go into depth in our planning, control the design, control the project management a little bit more. The operators are always pushing us fast, try to open as soon as possible. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of have a more control over the development.
Thank you. Doc?
Yes, so in terms of challenges, I think the other folks have talked about that. Obviously, this has been, needless to say, a very challenging time for hotel owners. But I think I would like to focus on the opportunity. Here there is an opportunity to look at operations, try to see where there are places where we can streamline operations, become more efficient. This is also a good time to look at renovation. If you have renovation plans that you have been putting off because the assets are doing well, so this could be a good time to look at that, because this is the best time. It doesn't affect your operation as much. And then obviously on the investment side, hopefully there could be certain attractive opportunities that we can look at to expand our investment.
Thank you. Jen?
I think for all Vietnamese enterprises, not including Novaland Group, then there's a risk and returns factor kicks in. But I have seen, because in Novaland we do buy and sell from other developers as well, so we haven't seen any slowdown or setbacks in terms of investment or development activities. The market is very, the Vietnamese developer look at the market differently in terms of rates and returns. The developers now, local developers now tend to go into a large scale integrated projects which have immediate cash flow and recurring portfolio combinations. So with that, they do slow down into, they do have some sort of financial stress tests in terms of development and investment, but they do not slow down in accelerating the developments of the business.
Thank you. This question is aimed at the developers, Vo, Roland and Hannes, in terms of what do you see as the impact on future design and operations of city and resort hotels?
Well, it's a long question. I think you are going to see impacts on all aspects, right? Of course, obviously on the technical side, anything that will help you not to touch anything like touchless checking in, your door opens without touching, just these things to help you to avoid any spread of any further viruses that are prone to come. But it's also something very obvious for your clients. They can see, oh, there's something new that's here to protect me. It makes them feel good. The more interesting thing, the more difficult thing is then during the hotel development, and we spoke about it very quickly before, these massive function halls. What are they good for if you can't have any conventions? And it's really a question of how modular can you design them? How easily can you break them up into smaller items? What kind of infrastructure do you have to support online conferences, for example? The same thing in the lobby, for example. You need to create areas where people are kind of separated, but they don't really want to have plexiglasses everywhere. You can put bookshelves in there, for example. But these are all things that are going to change the appearance of a hotel. And then in the fitting out period, for example, material that's easy to clean. Maybe not so many carpets, even though you need carpets to look nice. Material that's not porous, or material that's easy to clean, that doesn't absorb any liquids. So there will be a lot of, not one massive change, but many, many small changes in this direction. Other questions like what you're going to do with your buffets. Are they still going to be accepted by the guests that come? Maybe you have to increase your room services, and people are going to eat in the rooms, which means you need different tables, different chairs. What you're going to do with the gyms. Do you have gyms inside your room, or do you have very separated gyms? There's plenty of things to talk about, and I think we're just only at the very beginning to discuss these things, because they impact everything from your operations to how you present yourself to your target market. It's really a big topic.
Thank you. Well,
I think Hannes almost answered everything.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned previously, for us, we're also now focusing a lot on, for example, back of the house, to make it very efficient, to make it very compact. Looking a little bit on how you operate hotels in the US and Europe and Australia, because I strongly believe that we have to look at reducing, we know we have to reduce manpower, we know we have to multitasking, etc. And that's where also the back of the house comes into effect, to see where they're located, how we do it, how we can integrate, as well as in the front of the house. In terms of style and type of hotels, I think Mario mentioned in his introduction that lifestyle is becoming a very big thing, and we're developing a number of hotels in Hanoi, and we're doing it with very much a lifestyle concept. And I think that's also what's going to come very much, because we know that ecotourism, wellness, adventure, and so forth, it's probably where the direction the hospitality and hotel business is going. So a lot of the hotels now, we really work on making them destination hotels. F&B is going to play a very important part, more than before, especially in our boutique hotels. So we want to make sure that the location of the outlets, we want it to feel like they're standalone hotels. So I think that's where we're going very much in T&T hospitality at the moment.
Thank you. Well.
I just want to add in, if we talk about the architecture, I think the new trend for resort hotels in many places will tend to low-rise architecture, which is can be opened, and we can go for lifestyle like our panelist mentioned. And if we go for the high building in big city, it should have multi-function building. We can convert to different purposes when necessary. And in terms of operation, I think local management will be the trend. And of course, it doesn't mean that the expat will lose on their jobs. However, like people mentioned many times about cutting costs and multitasking team through our observation so far, and we believe that local management will be the new trend.
Thank you. I'll move along to Mr. Duck and Mr. Fien now. Yeah, so condotels and branded residences. Two questions. One is, have you seen those properties performing better than the hotels because they're more isolated and more private? And what do you see for the future of condotels and branded residences?
I think the whole market is negatively impacted by COVID-19, and it's affect across sectors. And condotels or branded residences, it serves certain supply and demand of the markets, both from the perspective of the investor, the purchasers of that unit itself, as well as the end user perspective. So, given that about 85, like in 2019 numbers, 85% of the tourists are from domestic market, and it's surely that condotels or branded residents will, along with the other segments in other hotels and resorts, will recover along with the whole market. There are certain drawbacks or imbalance between supply and demands here and there because of the developer reputations or the legislation's difficulties in certain projects, but fundamentally the condotels or branded residences are the right concept. It serves well for the market, domestic market demands. To add on to that, then Vietnam market by its nature, the developers are very creative in terms of thinking about new products and launching new things to the market. So condotels, farm stay, branded residences, as long as serve the demands of the purchaser and it serve the end user demand, then it will have reason to exist, and as long as it's qualified up to a professional scheme.
So currently, Lodges doesn't have any condotel projects in operation, although we are looking at launching one, perhaps in the next 1 or 2 quarters. We've done some research. Market feedback so far has been good. It shows that the interest for this type of product is still there. Obviously, we are helped by the fact that our project is in Ho Chi Minh, which is within driving distance from Ho Chi Minh City. So we've seen that interest in this kind of market across all types of products has increased recently. I mean, people are looking at something, they can buy a second home within driving distance, something that they can see, go to very easily. So I think the demand is still there. Obviously, we know some other developers have launched in that area, and they've sold a couple of thousand units very quickly. So there are very encouraging signs.
Thank you. I'm going to do something a little bit different now, because I know we've got Adam Riley in the audience from BIM Group. As most of you will know, BIM Group is one of the bigger developers in Vietnam. So I thought it might be also interesting to get Adam's view on where he sees things heading in 2021.
Some positives first, really. I just wanted to sort of reach back, because the guys were talking about on the earlier panel a little bit before, is one of the things at BIM Group that we're doing, and the people that don't know BIM Group, we've got two big developments, one in Phu Quoc, one in Ha Long Bay, and they're considerable developments. When COVID-19 first struck, and then we were going through it before the second wave, our chairman said, look after your talent. Look after your talent. The number one thing is your talent. So we did take, leave without pay at all of our properties, but maintain your staff. So when we come out of this, we can come out of it strong. And so talent was number one for BIM, to look after. It came through loud and clear through our board of directors. Looking at sort of 2021, we're looking at it, and hopefully we're right, and everyone's sort of guessing at the moment, but the first quarter is domestic demand. Quarter 2, quarter 3, we're looking for regional demand, so borders to open. In quarter 4, we're looking at a little bit of global demand. So I'm hoping what you said before, Ken, on those international numbers, we go into the middle or to the the higher number anyway. But also what we like, and what we're doing in BIM at the moment, is looking at that domestic demand. And our developments is very much focusing on domestic. And so we've got a fairly healthy pipeline next year. We'll open the Regent in Q2, and that's down in Phu Quoc. And it comes back to probably one of the questions as developers, what are we doing? Is we're looking to work with partners where we can cluster to save costs. So we've got a Regent right next door to an Intercontinental. We're working strongly with the Sailing Club as well, where we can cluster and save costs. Part of our pipeline next year, we'll open the Zitadines, 580 room property in Ha Long Bay with the residents next door. We've got a boutique hotel in Phu Quoc that will open, a Sailing Club Villas that will open, and all going well, we might open a Holiday Inn in Laos as well. And a couple of other things in Hanoi, where our office is an extension to Fraser Apartments, and a really nice Japanese restaurant. So we see, this year was an opportunity to sort of step back, and we all see the problems, but we also, our board of directors invested, and I think someone said it before, is the opportunity to invest in your assets, and where you've got some problems or you need to do some refurbishing. That's what we've taken. We know that the market will come back, and it'll be domestically driven for a wee while, but let's hope that international sort of travel can come back. I had 8 years in China, and I saw what happened with a lot of people traveling in China, and I can see a wave or a tsunami of Chinese coming across the borders when they open. So getting ourselves ready for that wave from China, from Korea and Taiwan is something that BIM's group is doing at the moment, just to prepare ourselves for 2021, 22 and onwards. So we're optimistic.
Thank you. Good. Thanks a lot, Anne. So how much time do I have left?
I think time is gone. One second. Thank you, Adam, very much. Let's pretend you were not ready for this question.
Sorry?
We have Nhung. Nhung, you are the time person, so how long?
No, how much time do I have left?
We have time for one question.
One question?
Yes.
from the audience or yourself.
Okay, so let's throw that open to the audience. We've got time for one question. Sorry, I thought we had a bit longer. But is there a question out there?
Yes. Young, we have a question.
Yeah. Okay, there's one there.
My name is Leon Shears from Oriental Media. I'm not quite certain whether I should have asked this question at the first panel, but we've heard an awful lot about the negativity associated with COVID. And the previous speaker was the first person to talk optimistically. Thank you. We've talked about cutting back, reducing, changing, firing loads of people, etc., etc. One of the things, one of the assets that was mentioned earlier was, excuse me, was staff. And those are very, very important. And possibly the second most important asset is customers. And nobody's talked about how you can treat customers better in the future, how you can be more careful with them, how you can attract them, how you can expand services. Everything has been about negativity and reducing costs. Does anybody want to make any comment about the possibility of improving the quality of the tourism and the residential stays that we have here in Vietnam?
Any volunteers for that one? Hannah's gone.
All in the sword here? No. Look, no, you're 100% right. Anything revolves around customers. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. You're absolutely right about this one. And of course, customers are very demanding, so they're basically driving what hospitality should be doing. It's not that people voluntarily come up with higher costs to solve a problem that doesn't exist. But I think the mindset is changing to a certain extent, that when we spoke about unhappy customers, there were people that maybe didn't have a nice view out of the room. Given the current pandemic, unhappy customers could potentially mean really, really sick customers. So the implications of what could go wrong went from unhappy to really, really, really bad. And that's what people start to realize, that in the process of this one, the whole concentration on the customer, I think, is changing, because once you start taking physically care of somebody, it changes your mindset. You get more involved with them, and you by taking care of them, keeping them safe, you also improve other things around them. So it's definitely a process that's happening. And I agree, you need to keep your talent. These are things you cannot learn overnight. You cannot have a textbook, read it, and suddenly you're a great people's person. That doesn't work. And in any new market, when you look at the pipeline, every new hotel is going to try to find new stuff. Where they're going to find that? Well, the hotel next to me. So if you don't keep your staff happy and keep them involved and take care of them, you're not going to have the reserves to take care of your customers, and that's a bad thing.
Would anybody like to add to that? Okay, so.
Ken, if you have a great question that will take 30 seconds to answer, I'll still give you a shot.
It'll take me 30 seconds to ask it, Mauro. Okay, I'll throw it open to whoever wants to answer it. But, you know, we'd started to see a move to second and third tier cities in terms of development. Now, is the impact of COVID going to speed that up, or is it actually going to hold it back?
Sorry, I'm holding the microphone today.
I wasn't looking at you to answer.
No, look, we as a company, we already have developments in second-tier cities, and they're actually not that small, they're actually quite big, and traditionally you would start with residential, and then you work the market up. There are new hotels coming up over there, they're all very local, but because you have a stronger residential base over there, you've got more companies over there, more income, you've got more business travelers, and that's the first step for the city hotels. If a second-tier city is a good place for a hotel or resort just because a second-tier city is a difficult question. A lot of local developers go into second-tier areas, which are still very beautiful. It's just difficult to get there. And then you found your own airline to bring people over there. But I think it's a good thing to do, and it's happening because development costs are lower, and people want to see different things. They don't want to go to 3 cities all the time. They want to see something else. And I think it's going in the right direction.
Thank you. One last comment from Ken.
I think with lots of public investment in infrastructure across Vietnam, especially the road, national road leading from the north to the south. Definitely with that huge public investment, it will unlocking lots of values along the coastal lines of Vietnam. And with the COVID impacts, obviously everyone in these rooms will know that drivable distances like nearby Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi will definitely be destinations in the future. I think that is a trend, and it's unavoidable. Just want to add one more point on that.
Yeah, actually, our group, we're putting a lot of emphasis on second and tier cities, like what happened in China, say, 20 years ago, where you saw a big development in second and third tier. We're developing hotels in places like Dak Mil, Quang Chi, Vinh Long, some places where even the Vietnamese don't even know where exactly it is. Because we really believe that those are cities which in, say, 5 years plus will develop. And what we're also doing in these cities with these projects is that they're all multi-use. So we're doing hotels, retail, conferences. And on the top of that, we work with international architects and designers to make sure that they are of international standards. So they're not just concrete blocks. And together with, as I mentioned, we have a strategic partnership with an international hotel company who will do all our 15 hotels that we have planned, so that they will be strong branded, because I think both the domestic market and the international market are going to look for new places. We can see that happen in Thailand, northeast Thailand, which say 10 years ago, nobody would think of going there. Now that's where the development is happening. So we strongly believe that that's where a lot of the development will happen.
So, in the interest of gender equality, last word to Bo.
Unfortunately, prior COVID, the price of some areas in tier 2 and 3 are pretty high, because we do have projects in some places. And there will be corrections, of course, but the correction may be not big enough for the developers. Then for TMG, we will see that the values for strategic hub city will be increased. And also natural area in tier 2 and 3 will be also increased. And for those places in the less strategic and less opportunistic in tier 2 and 3 will be decreased.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Duck wanted to have the last words.
Sorry.
No. You're on, I think. No.
We intentionally did it, otherwise now
Hello?
we can keep
Oh, okay.
Cut it out. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree with Roland that due to COVID, the domestic market has taken on, greater importance. So I think the development might even be sped up. Obviously, this is subject to certain considerations. For example, if the provincial government putting in, attractive incentives for investors to come in, for developers to start building. Also wanted to share, this year we have opened a new resort in Quy Nhơn. It's called the Maya Quy Nhơn. And a hotel that we are going to manage called Fusion Resort Quang Binh is starting construction this year. So, there are, encouraging signs for the second and third tier cities.
Okay. Thank you. So I'd like to thank my panel and also thank Savills,
Thank
of
you,
course, for
Mr. Ken
organising.
and the panelists. This was a great 30 seconds that Mauro have given to you.
Okay, thank you.
So moving up to the next part, we're going to show a few videos on the wellness, on F&B concept, on lifestyle brand, and we also have a few interviews with some overseas experts.